What's up, everybody? It's Justin with another episode of In Case You Missed It. This is In Case You Missed It, episode number 3. This is where I take about 5 minutes. I try, but I talk a lot. 5 minutes is not a lot of time. But I take about 5 minutes to break down my most recent Facebook Live Ask Me Anything episode. This was last Wednesday night, 2 nights ago, at 8 p.m. Central. I do it every week. This was Live Ask Me Anything number 42, titled Blood Pressure, Salt, and Sex? That's right, we talked about blood pressure, salt, and sex. Mostly salt. We talked all about salt. Why? Because salt is extremely important for human survival. Salt is an essential mineral, which means without it, you die. However, doctors have been telling us for 40 plus years now that if you don't restrict salt, you will have a cardiovascular event and die of a heart attack. This is ridiculous. Nothing could be further from the truth. And what they don't tell you is that salt does not significantly increase or decrease blood pressure whatsoever in the vast majority of human beings. They also don't tell you what a low salt diet can do to you, the negative health consequences of following this doctor prescribed low salt diet. Let's touch on a few of these things. It will increase your heart rate. This happens in 100% of people. A low salt diet is going to increase your heart rate, which is a much more significant risk of cardiovascular events than blood pressure ever will be. Let's list some of the other health consequences of a low salt diet. Kidney dysfunction, adrenal dysfunction, hypothyroidism. It increases your bad cholesterol, LDL, decreases your good cholesterol, HDL. It raises your insulin and can actually lead to full-blown insulin resistance, which leads to type 2 diabetes, which is associated with obesity, also reduced sex drive, and infertility in women and men, both sexes. A low salt diet is horrendous for you guys. I need you to understand this. I supplement salt each and every day, and I went into full-blown recommendations in this episode, but we'll get into that. So, if a low salt diet has so many horrific side effects, surely doctors have a really good reason for telling you to follow this diet, right? Wrong. Not even close. In fact, the history of the low salt diet looks almost identical to the history of the low fat diet. Because we all know that eating too much fat will kill you, right? No, of course not. But both of these diets, the low salt diet and the low fat diet, were promoted to the public with literally zero sound scientific evidence backing up their claims. Literally zero. Both of them have been securely locked in as mainstream medical advice for over 40 years, while America has gotten sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker as we follow this advice. Both of these diets, low fat and low salt, can straight up kill you, for real, particularly when you combine the two, which is what they do for almost all middle-aged men. Low fat, low salt. They hate their lives and they get sicker anyway, right? Now, the main claim is that salt raises blood pressure. You eat a lot of salt, you drink a lot of water, the water goes into your blood to dilute the salt, increases blood volume, increases blood pressure. Okay, sounds like a decent theory, right? But no, it doesn't tell the whole story. The body is not that simple. And in fact, the vast majority of medical evidence shows that the vast majority of human beings see no impact whatsoever on their blood pressure from salt intake. 80% of individuals with normal blood pressure, zero impact on their blood pressure from salt. 75% of individuals with pre-hypertension, zero impact on their blood pressure from salt. 55% of human beings with full-blown hypertension, chronic high blood pressure, see zero impact on their blood pressure from salt intake. Those are the individuals with the highest blood pressure on earth, and they still see zero impact on their blood pressure from a low salt diet or a high salt diet. It's ridiculous, you guys. It has been known in the medical data, literally in scientific journals, and I'll explain that to you in a second. Since the 1980s, it has been known that hypertension is a metabolic disorder. What causes it? Our old friend, insulin, which causes a whole bunch of horrible shit in the body. Now, I'm not saying insulin's bad. Insulin also leads to big muscles. I'm a big fan of insulin, right? But up to 80% of all people with hypertension also have insulin resistance. The New England Journal of Medicine went so far as to publish a quote that says, quote, "Essential hypertension is an insulin-resistant state. Those with a low-salt diet Their insulin spikes sends a signal to their kidneys to reabsorb and conserve as much sodium as possible. That high insulin level shuts off fat burning. You cannot access fat as energy in the body, which means you only have one energy source left. That source is carbohydrates, which means when you can't access fat, the body knows it needs more carbohydrates, sends a signal to the brain, you get sugar cravings, consume even more carbohydrates, which leads to even higher insulin, which leads to type 2 diabetes and obesity. Makes a whole lot of sense, right? This is crazy, you guys. Now, why did I talk about sex in this episode? Because a low-salt diet is basically a contraceptive for human beings, like I said. This leads to lower sex drive. It leads to low testosterone in men. It leads to increased erectile dysfunction in men. It leads to chronic fatigue. It leads to sleep problems. It leads to decreasing the age at which women become infertile. And another message I want to get out there, I don't know how long I've been going now, but for the pregnant mamas and the breastfeeding mamas, salt plays a critical role in breast milk production and the nutrient density of that milk. Salt is an essential mineral for all human beings at all stages of life, including in the womb and breastfeeding. Now, when you're breastfeeding, you're going to have to take in more dietary salt because you're giving up a lot of salt through your breast milk because it's good for the baby, okay? Now, pregnant moms. A study published in Lancet with more than 2,000 pregnant women found that a low-salt diet versus a high-salt diet caused more miscarriages, more premature births, and more stillbirths. Also, one of the major sources of iodine in our diets is salt. In pregnant women, iodine deficiency is the leading cause of mental retardation. Let that sink in when you are pregnant and your doctor is insisting that you follow a low-fat, low-salt diet. Crazy. Okay, so why do they have you follow this low-salt diet? Because they want to decrease your blood pressure. I'm going to give you a quick lesson, then we're going to wrap this up. Normal blood pressure, 120 over 80. 120, that's your systolic blood pressure. 80, your diastolic blood pressure. 120 over 80. Following an extremely low-salt diet may lower your blood pressure, your systolic blood pressure by 0.8, your diastolic blood pressure by 0.2. So, you could theoretically lead a miserable life with no salt and lower your blood pressure from 120 over 80 to 119 over 80. Makes a whole lot of sense, right? Especially when the trade-off for a 1-point reduction in blood pressure is insulin resistance, metabolic disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, increased risk of heart attack, low testosterone, infertility, decreased athletic performance, increased risk of birth defects, increased risk of miscarriage. What are we doing here, everybody? What are we talking about? This is crazy, right? Absolutely crazy. So do yourself a favor, pick up some Redmond sea salt. That's my favorite. Salt your food, even throw it in your water every now and then. Supplement. I use salt as a pre-workout. All these things, right? I recommend 3 to 6 grams of sodium per day. That's not total salt. You'll need more salt than that to get that level of sodium. But I recommend around 3 to 6 grams, maybe up to 7 if you're low carb or you're an athlete. 3 to 6 grams of sodium per day. If you want all of my recommendations, check out the entire episode. This was live Ask Me Anything number 42 called Blood Pressure, Salt, and Sex. You can get the entire video at clovis.store/AMA. Clovis.store/AMA. You can see the video or you can click the links for the podcast. You can go check out my podcast. This is also available as an audio podcast. Go to clovis.store/AMA to see the entire episode. Extraordinary Alex says, doctors are whack. When I was in 9th grade, they had me on cortisol, aldosterone, and metformin for Addison's disease and insulin resistance. They had me cut carbs and salt. Felt awful. Gross, right? It's crazy, guys. Now, again, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on the internet. This is not medical advice. Do not take it as medical advice. This is just me sharing what I've learned with you. This is In Case You Missed It, episode number 3, a quick recap of my Facebook Live, Ask Me Anything, number 42, blood pressure, salt, and sex. Follow us at facebook.com/theclovisculture, and you can see all these every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central. See the full video. Go to clovis.store/AMA. Check out the episode, click the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. You'll have all my show notes and resources for all my favorite salt products and all the things. Thank you for being here, guys. This is In Case You Missed It, episode number 3, blood pressure, salt, and sex. You guys are awesome. Bye. Have a good day.